After my daughter died, I got rid of every habit my arms dealer husband hated. I stopped asking about his whereabouts when he stayed out all night. I slept peacefully, even when I was injured in an explosion and the military doctor asked me to notify my family. I calmly replied, "I don't have any family." A nurse recognized me. "You're Mrs. Luis, right? Luis is in the camp next door. Do you want me to inform him?" I gently shook my head and said no. Yet half an hour later, Luis still came. A gunpowder-like hostility pressed between his sharp brows. His voice was cold. "You're hurt. Why didn't you come to me?" I lowered my eyes. "Just a scratch from shrapnel. Won't kill me." My casual tone made Luis inexplicably irritated. He was about to speak when voices from the guards outside drifted in. "Luis really cares about Miranda. She twisted her ankle during training, and he dispatched a helicopter, personally carried her on and off, wouldn't even let her touch the ground." Luis's heart suddenly tightened. The corner of his eye instinctively glanced at me, as if waiting for me to question him and make a scene like before. But my eyelashes didn't even tremble. I simply leaned against the hospital bed and closed my eyes to rest. Chapter 1. The pressure around Luis grew heavier. He explained in a low voice, "Don't listen to their nonsense. Miranda is the base's specialist. If she gets hurt, it affects the mission. I was just doing my job." I gave a soft mem and said nothing more. Luis suddenly exploded in anger. "You don't believe me?" "I do." I responded to every sentence, yet each word was empty. "Miranda is a key member you trained. You're superior and subordinate. It's only natural you look after her." It felt as if gunpowder clogged his chest. No, this felt completely wrong. At that moment, the sound of equipment crashing suddenly came from outside. Miranda staggered in, supporting herself against the wall, and fell at the doorway of my ward. Luis immediately rushed forward and scooped her up in his arms. "Why are you running around? Didn't I tell you to stay in bed?" "I heard Madam was injured." Miranda looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I came to visit Madam." Then she shrank into Luis's arms as if I were some terrifying beast, her voice trembling. "Madam, please don't hate me. I didn't mean to cause Sophia's death. If this were before, I would have gone hysterical. I would have grabbed Luis by the collar and demanded why he was protecting the woman who killed our daughter. But now, I said nothing. I simply stared quietly at the ceiling. Luis lowered his voice. "I'll take her back to the infirmary and come back right away." Then he carried Miranda away. He never returned that night. Instead, the Department of Technology called. "Gloria, are you sure you want to join the construction of Deep Space Shield? This is a top-secret project. Once you join, you must remain stationed at the base for at least 20 years, completely cut off from the outside world, including your husband." I'm sure. My voice was flat. The person on the other end hesitated. "All right, if you change your mind, you can withdraw the application within 3 days. After all, you once cared so much about Luis." I didn't wait for him to finish. "I won't regret it, because I don't love him anymore." The moment the words fell, Luis pushed the door open violently. Ice hardened in his eyes. His voice was dangerous. "Don't love? Gloria, say that again." Hearing movement at the door, I silently hung up the phone and closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. Luis approached with a chilling aura, then stopped when he saw my tightly shut eyes. Chapter 2. So she was talking in her sleep. The tension between his brows eased slightly. Yet the nameless fire inside him burned even fiercer. Even in a dream, he would not allow me to erase him, so he grabbed my wrist and shook me awake. "Gloria, did you have a nightmare?" I lowered my eyes. "I dreamed of our daughter." A sharp pain pierced Luis's heart. He pulled me into his arms, his voice hoarse. "Gloria, we'll have children again, many children." I gave no response. My chest was a wasteland. Even my tears had dried up. "My daughter is dead. If we have another child, can we pretend nothing ever happened?" "Luis, you came in the middle of the night. Is there something you need?" Luis froze, his expression turning slightly unnatural. "Gloria, Miranda has a stomachache. She wants the calming soup you make." My body turned instantly cold and rigid. I had just survived an explosion. Shrapnel was still embedded in my body. Yet Luis woke me in the middle of the night to cook soup for Miranda. I tugged at the corner of my lips and said softly, "Bring me paper and a pen. I'll write the recipe." Luis immediately gestured for his men to fetch them, but when I handed him the written recipe, his fingertips suddenly trembled, because he suddenly remembered when he once asked me for this recipe. I had said, "The day we separate, I'll tell you, as long as we don't separate, I'll keep cooking it for you." And now, I handed it over so easily. "Luis, Miranda's in severe pain. She keeps calling for you." An urgent voice came from outside. Luis frowned and strode away without hesitation. I had long grown used to it. I closed my eyes and lay down, but just as I drifted into shallow sleep, a rough force yanked me up. "Gloria, why did Miranda vomit blood after drinking the soup?" Luis gripped my chin, his gaze cold as a gun barrel. "What exactly did you put in the recipe you gave me?" I lifted my eyelids and glanced at him faintly. "If there's something wrong with the recipe, let the military doctor test it." Luis felt something clog his chest. His tone sank. "Gloria, if you feel wronged, you can tell me. Don't be so cold. I'm your husband, not your enemy." I closed my eyes again. "There's nothing left for me to say to you." Luis's heart seemed to stop. "What do you mean, nothing left to say?" I gave no further response, as if he no longer existed. Outside, a subordinate reported in a low voice, "Luis, Miranda has had her stomach pumped and is out of danger, but she's very frightened. She keeps calling your name." "I understand," Luis replied coldly. He turned back and looked at me deeply. "Gloria, get some rest. Tomorrow I'll take you back to the base." Chapter 3. That night was as long as an endless winter. I stayed awake until dawn. My daughter, whom I carried for 10 months, would turn to ashes tomorrow, sealed into a cold urn and buried deep in the darkness underground. The next day, Luis arrived on time and personally drove me back to the base hidden within the mountain. Leaning on my cane, I slowly made my way into the memorial hall, wanting to see my daughter one last time. But the moment I stepped in, my mother-in-law rushed at me like a madwoman. "You vicious woman, you still dare to come back." She slapped me twice and screamed hoarsely. "You killed my granddaughter. You knew Sophia was afraid of heights, yet you took her to the observation deck. You did it on purpose." My entire body went cold. It was Miranda who took Sophia to the observation deck. Why was the blame falling on me? I turned to Luis. Luis looked away. At the same time, the other family members in the hall rushed forward, joining my mother-in-law in beating and cursing me. "Beat her to death. She even killed her own daughter. Get out. You're not worthy of Sophia." Sticks struck my body, stones split my forehead. My cane was snatched and used as a weapon. I fell to the ground, blood and dust smeared across my face. "Enough." Luis finally rushed forward and shielded me behind him. "Sophia's death was an accident. It has nothing to do with Gloria. Anyone who lays a hand on her again will be punished by family law." His gaze swept the crowd like a hawk, and they gradually dispersed. Luis's expression softened slightly. He carried me back to the bedroom, took out a medical kit, and personally treated my wounds. But my eyes held no emotion at all. I looked at him coldly. "Luis, it was Miranda who took Sophia to the observation deck. Why did your mother say it was me?" The gauze in Luis's hand paused. His voice turned dry. "Gloria, Miranda is a weapons specialist trained by the family. Her identity is sensitive. If the family knew she indirectly caused Sophia's accident, she wouldn't be able to remain at the base. But you are my wife. With me protecting you, no one dares touch you. If you take the blame this time, as compensation, I'll transfer 30% of the Luis family's military industry company shares to you." After speaking, he looked at me uneasily. He thought I would cry, make a scene, and question him. But my calm expression made him panic. I didn't argue or shout. I only glanced at him faintly. "Do as you wish. I don't care." I agreed. Luis should have felt relieved, but his heart tightened instead. "Gloria, don't overthink. I only value Miranda's talent," he explained on his own. "I understand." I lowered my eyes. No need to explain. Love requires explanations. I no longer loved him, so none of his words had any meaning. Chapter 4. Luis grew extremely irritated and was about to speak when a guard rushed in. "Luis, something's wrong." Miranda came to pay respects to the young miss and ran into Miss Sabrina. The two started fighting. Sabrina was the family's true bloodline. Luis's expression changed instantly. "Gloria, Bandage yourself. I'll handle this. With that, he hurried away. The moment Luis left, my mother-in-law barged in with several confidants. Gloria, no one is protecting you now. Her gaze was vicious. You killed Sophia. I want you to taste what falling feels like. She ordered her men to drag me to an abandoned ventilation shaft at the base. The opening was deep, cold wind howling from below. Sophia fell from the observation deck 30 floors up. Do you know how desperate a fall from that height feels? She grabbed my hair and pushed half my body over the edge. You were right there. Why didn't you catch her? Dizziness struck instantly. The darkness below looked like the mouth of a beast. She repeatedly pushed me to the brink and yanked me back at the last moment. Breathe! Aren't you breathing? She screamed into my ear. When my granddaughter fell, she didn't even have time to cry. After several times, my chest burned with pain. A metallic taste rose in my throat, blood seeping from my lips. Her organs may be damaged. Someone gasped. She'll die if this continues. Only then did my mother-in-law let go. I collapsed on the ground, consciousness fading. When I woke again, I was in the base infirmary. Luis sat beside my bed. Gloria, you're awake. He held my hand, eyes bloodshot. I'm sorry. I didn't protect you. Don't worry. I've dealt with those who attacked you. I also warned my mother. She won't touch you again. A chill seeped into my bones. I nearly died. And he merely warned his mother while still hiding the truth. When it came to disappointing me, Luis never failed. All right. I closed my eyes, unwilling to speak more. My indifference made his chest tighten. Gloria, I know you're grieving Sophia. He sighed softly. I'll compensate you. We have a long future ahead. I'll make you change your mind. After speaking, he left. As soon as he was gone, I received 2 encrypted messages. The first was from the civil registry. MS. Gloria, your divorce from Mr. Luis has been finalized. The second was from the Defense Technology Department. Gloria, the Deep Space Shield project begins tomorrow. Your special aircraft is ready. I stared at the screen for a long time, and finally smiled in relief. Chapter 5. At last. The day had come, but before leaving, I still had one final thing to do. I pushed myself up and, leaning on my cane, made my way to Miranda's ward. Gloria, what are you doing here? Miranda no longer looked weak and fragile. She raised her brow with disdain. Looking for Luis? How pitiful. You're hurt this badly and he barely glanced at you. I only twisted my ankle and he hasn't left my side. I remained unmoved. These petty games of rivalry had long ceased to concern me. I asked only one question. Miranda, that day on the observation deck, did Sophia fall on her own? Or did you push her? Miranda suddenly burst into loud laughter. Gloria, let me tell you, Luis was there that day too. The railing loosened. Sophia and I slipped at the same time. Luis didn't hesitate. He grabbed me. And your daughter fell right in front of us. Luis had been there the day my daughter died. Do you know what's funniest? Miranda's smile twisted. What's funniest is that Luis knew I trained in rock climbing and had excellent balance. Yet his first instinct was still to save me. Tears blurred my vision. I swore this would be the last time I cried for Luis. I wiped my tears and left the medical area step by step with my cane. I walked slowly, but I never looked back. Luis, we have no future anymore. From now on, we will never meet again in life or death. Chapter 6. I left the base in an internal vehicle and headed to the civil office to collect my divorce certificate. After completing the process, I boarded a military green off-road vehicle and drove toward the helipad. Before getting in, I uploaded the full recording of my conversation with Miranda from last night to the dark web. Sophia died in an accident. The law could not punish them. Then let the truth burn in the shadow world. This was the last thing I would do for my daughter. After finishing everything, I threw away my phone. The helicopter carried me into the sky, toward the boundless depths of space. I thought, I am finally free. The helicopter pierced through the clouds. The outline of the base below shrank rapidly and disappeared into the endless mountain range. I leaned against the cabin wall. Outside the window, dawn gradually brightened. The pilot, from the Defense Technology Department, remained silent and professional the entire time. Inside the cabin, there was only the roar of the engine and the heart in my chest that no longer beat for him. By the time we reached the Northwest Aviation Base, It was already evening. The Gobi Desert stretched endlessly, the setting sun dyeing the world in crimson gold. The base stood like a steel fortress embedded in the earth, solemn and silent. "Gloria, welcome." A middle-aged officer with graying temples came to greet me. His insignia showed high rank. "I'm the base commander, Angelo. Headquarters has briefed me on your situation. Starting today, you are the chief engineer of the Deep Space Shield project. This will be your home for the next 20 years, perhaps longer." Home? A faint trace of irony crossed my heart. The place I once called home had long been a hell that devoured my flesh and blood. "Thank you, Mr. Angelo." My voice was calm as I accepted the confidentiality agreement and identity badge he handed me. Chapter 7. The days that followed were filled with relentless work and isolation. Life at the base was a self-contained system, physically cut off from all outside contact. There was no internet, no private communication, only encrypted internal lines and mountains of blueprints and data. I poured all my time and energy into the Deep Space Shield. It was a cutting-edge system designed to build an energy defense network in near-Earth orbit, far more technologically complex than most people could imagine. Calculating trajectories, designing energy modules, running combat simulations. Every problem solved felt like another layer of my former self being peeled away. Occasionally, in the late hours of the night when exhaustion crashed over me, Sophia's face would appear without warning. The dimples at the corners of her smile, the soft way she called my name as she ran into my arms. My heart would tighten violently, bringing suffocating pain. But soon, I would force my attention back to the glowing screen before me. Pain needs an outlet, and work was the best anesthetic. The base was not entirely cold. My deputy, a young engineer named Bruno, was intelligent and perceptive. Perhaps he had guessed something from my file or my occasional silences, but he never asked. Instead, after I worked for more than 10 hours straight, he would silently hand me a warm, specially made energy drink, or offer a clever perspective when I frowned at complex parameters. "Gloria, look here. If we introduce a nonlinear disturbance model, we might optimize the energy focusing loss rate." He pointed at the screen, his eyes clear. I adopted his suggestion, and the results were remarkable. Gradually, the team's initial distance and awe turned into trust and respect. Here, there was no Mrs. Luis, only Gloria. That realization brought me an almost cruel sense of relief. Around the 8th month after I joined the base, after a routine full-system simulation test, Angelo called me into his office. His expression was grave as he handed me a top-secret briefing. "The Luis family's military company is in trouble," he said succinctly. I took it and skimmed quickly. The contents were shocking. Multiple overseas secret trading channels of the Luis family company had been exposed by an anonymous source. Several illicit weapons distribution deals, details, timelines, locations, intermediaries, even fragments of encrypted communications had been cleverly leaked in batches to international regulatory organizations and hostile forces. The information fell like precisely placed bombs, triggering a chain reaction, sanctions from multiple countries, partners turning against them, internal financial collapse, several major bases suffering mysterious attacks. The seemingly indestructible giant ship of the Luis family company was rapidly taking on water and tilting. Chapter 8. The method is highly professional. The intelligence is extremely precise. It looks like the work of a core insider. Angelo looked at me, his gaze carrying scrutiny and a faint, almost imperceptible curiosity. "The source of the leaks is hidden behind layers of encryption on the dark web and cannot be traced. But every leak strikes the Luis family company at its vital points." I put down the briefing without any change in expression. "Angelo, the only thing I care about right now is whether the ion thruster efficiency of the Deep Space Shield can be improved by another 3%. What happens to the Luis family has nothing to do with me." He watched me for a few seconds and slowly nodded. "I understand. You may return to work." As I turned to leave, I could feel his gaze still resting on my back. I knew he might not fully believe me. But here, my value lay in my mind, not my past identity. As long as the project progressed smoothly and I followed the rules, no one would dig deeper. Still, when the night grew quiet and I faced the vast star charts alone, I would think of the recording I uploaded before leaving. That had only been the fuse. The more deadly and secret information that followed. I closed my eyes slightly. Those were things I had unconsciously collected during my years in the Luis household, inside Luis's study. In the encrypted server backend, The side weapon design blueprints he believed I didn't understand, gathered like a desperate beast in a cage. At the time, perhaps it was vague self-protection, or perhaps the paranoia of pain with nowhere to go. I buried everything deeply. On the day I left, I scheduled all of it, along with that recording, to be released as a timed gift. Luis, are you satisfied with this farewell gift? Life at the base made it easy to lose track of time. Chapter 9. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. The first phase experimental platform of the Deep Space Shield was about to undergo its first orbital deployment test, the most critical and dangerous stage of the project. The entire base was enveloped in an atmosphere of pressure and excitement. 72 hours before launch, I practically lived in the main control center. During the final full system synchronization, an unexpected warning signal suddenly appeared on the main screen, an extremely slight abnormal fluctuation in orbital parameters, deviating from the preset model by 0.1%, probably background radiation interference or minor sensor drift. An engineer concluded, "It's within acceptable error margins." Bruno frowned and compared the data repeatedly. "Gloria, this fluctuation pattern, it's unusual. It doesn't look like natural interference. It looks more like an extremely weak signal injection with a specific pattern." My heart tightened. I immediately pulled all relevant logs and ordered a full investigation. Hours later, the results were chilling. 3 days earlier, during a brief window of external data maintenance, someone had attempted to implant an extremely concealed malicious code into the core navigation subsystem. The code was not meant to destroy the system directly, but to cause cumulative orbital parameter errors under specific conditions, eventually leading the platform to drift off course or fail. The intrusion had been detected in time. The code was removed and caused no actual damage, but the incident itself was enough to send chills down everyone's spine. The security level of the Deep Space Shield was the highest. External attacks were nearly impossible. This could only be an insider, or someone with extremely high access. The security department acted swiftly, but the trail ended with a young technician responsible for peripheral data interfaces. He disappeared the day before the incident. His car was found in the desert outside the base, but he had vanished as if into thin air. There were no useful clues in the car, only a faint, distinctive scent of gunpowder mixed with fur. That smell, my nails dug sharply into my palm. Luis's custom private fragrance, unique and lingering. He once said casually that the scent helped him maintain absolute calm. Was it him? Had he found this place? Or one of his men? Angelo's face turned ashen. He raised the base's security level and reported directly to headquarters. Orders came quickly. The test would proceed as planned, but the highest emergency protocols must be activated, and an internal investigation team formed. Chapter 10. On launch day, the Gobi Desert stretched beneath a cloudless sky. The massive launch tower stood between heaven and earth, the platform rocket gleaming with a cold metallic sheen under the sunlight. Inside the main control center, the atmosphere was thick enough to wring water from. Everyone was at their station, completely focused. I sat in the chief engineer's seat, surrounded by multiple large screens displaying different parameters. My heart beat steadily in my chest. All distractions, memories, even the shadow of the recent intrusion, were forcibly pushed to the deepest layers of my consciousness. At this moment, my world contained only these jumping numbers, flowing curves, and the creation about to ascend into the sky. T-1 minute, 50 seconds, 30 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Ignition! The roar surged through the ground, even inside the underground shelter. The immense force could be felt. On the screens, the rocket rose steadily, trailing blazing flames as it pierced the sky. First stage separation nominal. Second stage ignition nominal. Orbital insertion phase. Everything proceeded so smoothly it left everyone breathless. Only when the platform successfully entered its designated orbit, unfolded its solar panels, and began its initial system self-check did the control center erupt into long-suppressed cheers. Success. At least the first phase was a success. I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath, only then realizing my back was soaked with cold sweat. Bruno walked over and handed me a glass of water, his eyes shining. "Gloria, we did it!" I took the water and nodded, but I couldn't fully relax. The unresolved shadow of the intrusion still lingered in my heart. The celebration was brief. Follow-up data analysis and orbital maintenance began immediately. I returned to my office and pulled up all reports related to the intrusion, trying to find more clues in those cold streams of data. Night fell. Apart from essential personnel on duty, the base was silent. I rubbed my throbbing temples and prepared to leave. Just as I shut down the main system and stood up, the secure terminal in front of me, the one used for top secret, physically isolated processing, suddenly lit up on its own. No login screen, no system prompt. Against the black background, a single line of white text appeared like a ghost. Gloria, let's talk. My blood seemed to freeze instantly. The words lingered for about 5 seconds, then disappeared. The screen returned to sleep mode as if nothing had happened. But I knew it was real. This terminal's security level was extremely high. External intrusion should have been impossible, unless there was internal cooperation and the use of a top-level vulnerability or backdoor we didn't yet know about. Combined with the earlier malicious code incident, the answer was becoming clear. Chapter 11. Luis. He had really reached his hand into this place. Anger surged from the depths of my heart like a cold flame. How dare he touch the deep space shield? And in this way, did he know what this meant? It was provocation and a grave threat to national security. I immediately pressed the internal emergency communication button to contact Angelo and the head of security. They arrived quickly, and technical experts conducted a thorough inspection of the terminal. The result was alarming. An extremely advanced hidden access record had indeed been found. The source could not be traced, and the method was disturbingly professional. The access had occurred only minutes ago. Immediately conduct a full inspection of all internal networks and physical interfaces. Activate counterinfiltration protocols. Angelo's expression was grim. Such a vulnerability within the base was a serious failure. Gloria, the target is clearly you, the security chief said seriously. We need to know what he might want to talk about and how you intend to respond. I fell silent for a moment. Luis had reached out to me in this way because he knew I was involved in the Deep Space Shield project and might have discovered my actions against the Luis family company. Did he want revenge? To threaten me? Or something else? I will talk to him, I heard myself say calmly, without warmth, but in a completely controlled environment. I need a fully isolated, one-way transparent communication channel to ensure he cannot trace us or implant anything. The conversation must be monitored and recorded throughout. Angelo exchanged a glance with the security chief before nodding. We'll arrange it, but remember your position. I understand. My gaze was firm. First and foremost, I am the chief engineer of the Deep Space Shield. That will never change. The communication was arranged in a special isolation chamber. Inside were only the simplest audio devices. All signals were encrypted, filtered, and monitored in real time. At the appointed time, I sat before the microphone. The soft lighting carried invisible pressure. The connection opened. No video, only faint static, and then the voice I thought had long been buried in the dust of time came through the speaker. Low and hoarse, carrying exhaustion and urgency. Gloria. His voice was like a rusted blade scraping my eardrums. I clenched my hands on my knees, nails digging into flesh to stay absolutely clear. Luis, I said calmly, using the most distant tone. Do you know what illegally infiltrating a top-secret national facility means? Silence, then a faint, self-mocking sigh. I know, but I had to see you, or at least hear you. For your shady business? Or to seek justice for your Miranda? My voice carried cold sarcasm. Did you enjoy the recording in those files? His voice grew strained. I deserved them. That's not why I came. Oh, then why? Nostalgia? Sorry. There's no past between us worth revisiting. Gloria! His voice rose with suppressed pain. Don't be like this. I know I was wrong. Terribly wrong. Every day these 3 years I have repented. I cut him off. How much is your repentance worth? Can it bring Sophia back? Can it erase your choices? Can it undo your mother almost killing me? Or cleanse your family's dirty dealings? My barrage of questions plunged the other side into long silence. Chapter 12. After a long time, he spoke again, his voice hoarse. Sophia. I found out the truth later. It was Miranda. She deliberately loosened the screws on the old railing of the observation deck. At the time, I thought it was just an accident. I was afraid that if the family found out it was her, they would punish her. So you let me take the blame. And let your mother and family torture me as if I were the murderer of my own daughter? My voice finally began to tremble, not from sadness, but from extreme rage and absurdity. Luis, your appreciation for talent and your protection are truly astonishing. Do you know that that day, by the ventilation shaft, your mother almost threw me down? She kept saying I should experience Sophia's despair. I didn't know she would do that. I warned her. Luis's voice became urgent and panicked. Gloria, I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I'm willing to compensate you with everything I have. I don't want the company anymore. I don't need it. I cut him off sharply, all my emotions breaking through the dam of reason at that moment. Luis, your compensation, your Luis family company, everything you own, is worthless to me. From the moment you chose to grab Miranda and watched Sophia fall, there has only been hatred between us. Do you hear me? Hatred! Tears spilled uncontrollably, but I wiped them away quickly. My voice became even colder and harder. You risked contacting me today if you only wanted to hear this. Now you have. If you have any other purpose, I advise you to stop now. The deep space shield is not something you can touch. Your previous small moves have already attracted the attention of the highest authorities. If you continue, what awaits you will not be mere commercial sanctions. I took a deep breath and said with all my remaining strength, word by word, Luis, we ended long ago. We ended the moment I left the base and uploaded the recording. No, earlier than that. We ended the moment Sophia died. The moment you chose to protect the killer. Don't contact me again. Don't appear in my world again. If you still have even a shred of conscience, stay away from me and from my project. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to personally send you where you belong. Without waiting for any reply, I cut the communication. My finger trembled slightly on the disconnect button. The isolation chamber door opened, and Angelo and the security chief walked in. Their expressions were complicated. Clearly, they had heard everything. Gloria, Angelo hesitated. I lifted my head. The tears on my face had already dried, leaving only exhaustion and a barren calm. Angelo, I will submit a detailed report on this incident. Regarding Luis's possible infiltration attempt, I recommend immediate reporting and a full reassessment of the base's security system. Are you all right? The security chief asked. I'm fine. I stood up and straightened my back. The orbital calibration data for the deep space shield still needs to be reviewed. I'm returning to the main control center. I turned and walked away, my steps steady without the slightest tremor. Only I knew that deep within my heart, the last fragile remnant of the past had completely turned to ashes with that conversation. After that brief yet intense remote confrontation with Luis, the base entered an unprecedented state of high alert. Security systems were fully upgraded, and personnel underwent another round of deep background checks. The infiltrated terminal was sealed for research in an attempt to identify the vulnerability. On Luis's side, everything seemed to fall silent for the time being. There were no more unconventional communication attempts and no new signs of malicious attacks. It was as if my resolute words had truly taken effect. But no one dared to relax. Angelo told me that the higher authorities had placed Luis and his remaining forces under high surveillance, and international cooperation was underway. The collapse of the Luis family's military company accelerated, and the once mighty empire was now reduced to stubborn fragments struggling to resist. I devoted all my energy back to the deep space shield. The first phase platform operated steadily in orbit, and the test data was excellent, proving the feasibility of the system. The construction of the second phase platform and the development of more complex modules were immediately put on the agenda. Work became the only meaning of my existence and the strongest barrier separating me from the past. Bruno became quieter than before, yet worked even harder. He was no longer just my deputy. On many key technical problems, he displayed astonishing talent and unique insight. Our tacit understanding grew deeper. Sometimes a single glance was enough to understand each other. Yet I always deliberately kept my distance. The emotional wounds of the past had made me like a startled bird. Any closeness beyond work made me instinctively retreat. Chapter 13. Until that rare stormy night in the Gobi Desert. To debug a critical energy relay algorithm, Bruno and I stayed in the lab until late at night. Outside, thunder roared and lightning split the sky, while violent winds hurled sand and stones against the reinforced glass with terrifying force. Suddenly, the base's emergency lighting flickered on. The main power had tripped. Although the backup power activated immediately, Some non-core areas were still affected, including the laboratory's access control system. We were trapped inside. A voice came through the communicator from the duty room, saying lightning had struck the external power line and repairs would take time. We were told to wait where we were. The lab was lit only by dim emergency lights and the lightning that occasionally tore through the night sky. We sat side by side at the workbench, silent for a while. Only the sound of the storm and each other's breathing filled the room. "Gloria," Bruno suddenly said, his voice slightly blurred by the darkness and thunder. "Have you ever thought about what you'll do after the deep space shield is completely finished?" I froze for a moment. After it's finished? That goal felt too distant. I had never thought that far ahead. "I haven't," I answered honestly. "Doing what's in front of me is enough." He fell silent for a while and turned to look at me. The emergency light cast soft shadows across his face, making his features gentler than usual, while his eyes shone unusually bright. "Sometimes I think," he said slowly, "after this project succeeds, I want to see the real ocean. I grew up inland and have only seen it in videos. I want to know what it feels like to be surrounded by the sea, whether it really makes people forget their worries like they say." There was a rare hint of longing and quiet uncertainty in his voice. "It's all right," I interrupted, not wanting the atmosphere to grow heavy. "When the project succeeds, you should go see it. The ocean in times of peace must be beautiful. Will you go with me?" he suddenly asked, cautiously. I froze, unsure how to answer. "Together? In what capacity? Colleagues? Superior and subordinate? Or?" A particularly bright flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the entire lab and the clear, undisguised affection and hope in his eyes. The light was brief but searing. My heart jolted, followed immediately by instinctive panic. I stood up and walked to the large observation window of the control center. In the distance, the horizon, about to welcome dawn, was turning pale. I gazed at the brightening east. Darkness would eventually pass, and the stars and skies I had vowed to protect were welcoming a new dawn.